Well, I've got my formal shirt on, as you can see today, for the new season because we have spent a lot of the summer negotiating transfer and contract deals. While it's not been as eventful as the year before, there are five ins, there are five outs, and to be fair, it might be the people that we've kept that are more important than the people we've signed. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 128 of this Build a Nation story, Lifting Spirits with me, Daniel. We are into season 14 today and we are back with just our second ever Champions League qualifier. Our second title win in the Irish Premiership 3 years after our first means we have got a tie that is a bit unfortunate if we're being honest. We got the highest seeded of the unseeded teams and we will face Basel today over two legs. A 3.5-star reputation team, albeit our reputation is increasing too, and that is for a place in the fourth qualifying round. But the good thing with the way the Northern Irish coefficient is developing is we are guaranteed group stage football before we even start. So if you're looking forward to seeing which competition it will be in and whether we can edge closer to a very historic moment, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. Lots of transfer news to get through before the first leg as well. It is going to be a pretty important episode. I've tried to stick to a plan this summer and I'll talk about the reasoning in a moment, but we have got some key bits of business done. So we're going to look at the players in and out, a few extended loans going out as well, and also some contractual stuff. Let's start with the players that have left the club. It's been a busy old summer on that front. So if we go back to the end of last season, we have got a couple of youth players leaving the club on loan. Not that they're going to be a big worry at the moment. I'm going to keep the ins for a little while because you can see the two big names. We'd edged towards it in the last season review and it's starting to get real and exciting now. It's a big investment, but we'll come back to that in a minute because 5 players have gone out since the turnover of the year. We've got a little bit of money in. We've extended a few loans going out as well. People who were out of the club last year. The first one that left the club we knew about already. Bobby Harvey to Shelbourne was with us in the first season, came back and played a role for 2 or 3 years, but now he's just not good enough and he moves over to the Republic of Ireland. Sam McClellan was out on loan last year. He's been loaned out now to the end of his contract, which is at Mansfield, and then he'll be leaving the club permanently. Archie Whitehall, another club legend really from this save, £18,000. He was out of contract in 6 months. He's gone to Crawley after a couple of loan spells at Oxford and over 200 league appearances for us. He deserves to be remembered very fondly. And then the final one, Maurice Simpson has gone on loan to Kilmarnock. 50 grand is the loan fee. We're getting all of his wages covered as well. It's a pretty good deal in my book. He's out of contract at the end of the year, doesn't want to sign a new one, and he would have been third choice. He doesn't really fit our style, and although we haven't got a direct replacement yet, that will come in a matter of time. So a few big deals going out of the club, a little bit of money raised, but the more important thing for me, rather than a transfer investment, is to keep the wage bill under control. While we're in the Europa League and Conference, we're not going to make big profits while our wage bill increases. So keeping it around that 75k mark is going to be crucial if we want to keep improving the facilities, if we want to keep improving the recruitment, and maybe drive players for our own academy, of which we've got a few with a chance now. I will very quickly go back to last year, just so I can look at the players we loaned out. Ethan James has extended another year at Coleraine. Jonathan McElhatton has extended at Glentour until December, which is when his contract ends. Huarte's out till the end of the calendar year. Symington has extended his loan out as well. He rejected a permanent deal at Glenarvan. Few of them rejected permanent deals actually, which is a bit of a worry, particularly when it comes to the reputation front, which may now be playing a factor. Morgan Farrington's out till the end of the calendar year. And Tennant Dykes, did he extend? Yes, he did. He's there till the end of the year as well. On the release player front, which I forgot to show you, a couple of stalwarts going out. Jaffet and Pardy didn't feature the last couple of years, but 145 league games and a very decent player. And then the other one was Curtis Bell, who was probably one of the first superstars of his type to come in. He'd been here since, I think, our first season in the top tier he had, and he'd stayed at the club for a long time. And even last year, he featured in nearly half the league games. He has never been a real outsider, and he's always done pretty well for us. So massive credit to him again. Again, over 200 appearances for the club. We've got to give credit to these people who have been a huge part of our story. And now is a time to move on to the future. Or is it the future? Because a couple of these names are very familiar ones. Let's go and have a look at all the transfers in. And we start with two names that we know very well from last year. Jordan Gash at Norwich, well, he was a great loan signing, and now he is permanently a Distillery player. 850 grand, of which about a third of it was up front. He's a quality midfielder, the best at the club. He's got big potential. He's an England under-21 international. He's got a great professional personality, and he's just fantastic. I mean, we couldn't say no to him. When he was available for 2.5 grand a week wage, by the way, we would have had to be a bit of an idiot to turn that down. As is the case for Gavin Reid, really, because although it's 1.2 million, although his last appearance was getting sent off in the cup final, we have got to bear in mind that this guy has an extra string to his bow. In a couple of months, he becomes homegrown at the club. He becomes a player that doesn't have to be registered for the domestic league squad, and he becomes a player who's one of those 4 homegrown at the club for the Champions League or Europe, which, alongside the likes of Duncan McKenzie, who's come in recent years, adds an extra depth to our squad, allows us to use the full 25 rather than making spaces in the squad. He's also very good going forward, which we've seen in recent years is important. Lots of assists, particularly from corners, from set pieces, even those before the assist where it's just caused havoc in the box. And to get him for 1.2 million because of an active clause, it really is a great deal for us. 3 grand a week, no massive wage, and he's an under-19 international for England. He's got the lot. And again, a very good personality. So 2 incredible signings that we've managed to keep at the club, which moving forward is going to take us a long way. And once we keep getting those reputation rises, it will give us the boost financially as well, because we'll sell these boys for a profit, trust me. The third one that came in, though, is one I've been tracking a long time. A few of you may remember the name. Owen Kidd is a player at Cliftonville who was a bit of a gem at 16. He popped up in our scout reports but wasn't interested in a deal, and that's still the case, if we're being fair. But what he did agree to this summer was a loan deal, and I'm not sure why Cliftonville were loaning him out, because he's first team there, but he comes into this club as a backup centre-half. He has 2-star ability, he's 5-star potential, he's very good mentally, he's determined, he's 2-footed, he's got a lot going for him. And I'm looking at this as a sort of build a club or build a nation. If he does really well for us and he's happy to stay after, then bingo, we've got ourselves a gem for what will be a fairly nominal fee, probably low 6 figures at the end of the year. If he doesn't want to stay afterwards, then he goes back to Cliftonville as a heavily improved player, because we've got significantly better training facilities, we're training full time, and he's going to benefit from that. And he's going to be playing in higher reputation competitions because he will get games in the cups. We'll try and bring the youngsters off the bench in Europe where it's possible. And I just feel that as a defender who's 6'1", who can jump, who can tackle, who's got good positioning, his technique's remarkable for a defender, and he's not even that bad on the ball. I just feel we had to do it. So we'll keep an eye on him, see how he develops, and how long will it be before he's a Northern Ireland international. I'll be in charge of that, let me tell you. Maybe if I give him his debut, he'll then want to join me because I'll be a favour personnel. So they're the 3 that came in early in the summer, 2 renewed ones and 1 long-term target. And then with the 2 other ins, I've taken a bit of a gamble. We all know the positions we said we needed to improve. The left-hand side of the pitch, left back, left midfield. Now, we couldn't find the targets we wanted as first choice because they wanted 6, 7, 8 grand a week, or if they were at other clubs, they were 2 or 3 million, which after signing Reid and Gash, we just didn't have any transfer budget left. So I've taken the approach of going for 2 younger players or players with a point to prove. Now, they'll either be short-term solutions who can move on later down the line, or they'll develop and become first teamers. And what I've tried to do by making this decision is save spaces in the squad and, more importantly, save some wage budget so that when the likes of Merivale, Austin or Scully come along, or their equivalents this year, we'll be able to sign them. We've shortlisted about 12 players from our scout report who I feel fit into that category. 2 or 3 of them have already been signed by English clubs and another few are going to be. But if we can get 1 or 2 of them later in the year, then we're going to be in a great position. So what I didn't want to do is blow all of the budget on players that I wasn't sure was going to be a big upgrade. So what we've done instead is we've got a left winger and a left back who are pretty good, who are ones for the future and are ones that can improve. So we'll start with the one from United. Kashif Beaton is a free agent left midfielder. A bit different to what we're used to, a bit more technical, prefers to cut inside, can play in 3 or 4 positions. Again, very determined, a good character behind the scenes, very good physically, very naturally fit, only 20 years of age, so plenty of room to grow into. And let's be fair as well, he is as good as Parry and Lafferty, so he'll probably get a lot of game time in the domestic fixtures. He also doesn't need to be registered for the domestic squad because he's 20 or under. So there were a lot of bits of thinking in there. If it doesn't work out this year, if he can't break in, then we'll loan him out next season. And eventually, he'll become a good player because he's on a 3.5-year deal. So I'm really pleased with that one. I think he will improve quite quickly. But he is also joined by Kyle Carr. Now, this guy's a bit older from QPR, but he's Northern Irish and he's not far from the national team. I was aware of him because he was sort of an emergency left-back option for the national team. He's not made a squad yet, but he probably will in the future. He's been an under-21 international. He only wanted a couple of grand a week, and he's got a lot of room to grow into. He's played senior football at several clubs in the EFL, and although he's not got the most ability at the moment, he's got a few things that probably will appeal to us. One of them is that he loves going forward, is a player trait, he's good in the cross as well, and he's fairly good physically, he's got good natural fitness, all things that Paul Ray didn't have on loan last year. And with Miles Stout at a younger age and of a similar ability and potential, it gives us an option to bring through 2 players who could possibly become stars. And if one of them does, then great. And if the other doesn't, then they can just sit and be a backup for a few years. It's not a big deal. Again, he's only on a 2-year deal, this lad. So if it doesn't work out next summer, we just move him on and get a better replacement. And it does give us that little bit of depth as well, because we've had the problems with Miles Stout and offers maybe getting accepted. We've got the minimum fee release out of his contract. He is one of those we've extended. But just in case the chairperson goes rogue, a new one we've got by the way, and sells the player on, then we have got our own player who's decent at left back. And he's definitely an upgrade on Curtis Bell, which is basically who he's replacing. So I'm really pleased with those bits of business. Probably not, bar Gash and Reed staying permanently. They're probably not the big standout singing and dancing deals you wanted. But with the 2 million transfer budget or 1.5 million plus add-ons, I wanted to make sure that we kept 2 players who were brilliant for the long term. And that will make us more money than if we'd gone out and taken a gamble on 2 very good players who both would have wanted bigger wages. So I feel that we've made the right decision in keeping Gash and Reed and adding these younger, hungrier players in other areas. But I do accept that in a couple of positions, it means we haven't made that improvement we expected. But you can let me know in the comments if you think that's the right decision. In the meantime, we're going to find out for ourselves, because via finding out what we've done contractually, we are going to go and get into our first Champions League qualifier, which I think will be a pretty tough game. But let me take you through the squad first, because you can see we have been doing an awful lot in the summer. The youth players have been training with the senior team. I'm trying to get them working on the mentoring front. But if we have a look at the contracts themselves, still no one on more than 3.6 grand a week, which is incredible. A few players potentially wanted and moving on from the club, but crucially, a few new deals signed. Now, a few of them only had 1 year on a contract and they've signed extensions, so the likes of Mills, Daly, Hamilton fell into that category, one of the backups I think. Cameron Goss might have even been in that group. There were 3 or 4 that we extended. But the big deals, if we have a look at them, are of course the ones that are going to be important for the long term. Morgan Griffiths is that first player who was homegrown at the club. He's still a very competitive squad member, and he allows us to bolster that Champions League squad by essentially being an extra midfielder. So he stays, and he's got a contract now for 2.5 years. Miles Stout even more so, 3.5 years, and it's written out the minimum fee release clause, so he's going to be here for the long term, and we'll compete now with Kyle Carr for the left back slot. And then further forward, we have got a bigger deal, and that one is Johnny Merivale Austin. Now, he signed a 1-year extension, but it's got an extension clause for an extra year. He's the best player at the club. It has one worry though. He has got a minimum fee release clause that lasts until the 31st of May next year. I put it in because it was the earliest date you could get rid of it, and it's the only way we could get him to sign a new deal. His previous one was 1.2 million anyway, so we're going to get more money than we would have. I've put in a thing for an international appearance, which I don't know whether he'll get, but he's been involved in the youth teams before. But one of the things that we had to do was try and keep him for the longer term, because he is such an upgrade on what we've had in the squad. And there are 1 or 2 that we're keeping an eye on for sort of October, November time that might be of a similar ability if need be. But if we get through January and he's still at this football club, we've basically then got him for 2.5 more years, which is great. So let's go and get through to the fixtures. We've had a pretty solid pre-season. We lost at home to United. We've beaten the rest, including Cardiff, which was a pretty tricky game. But now we go and face Basel away from home. Will we still be in the European tie after? That's the big question. I'll tell you who is in the European ties, though, and that is Linfield and Larne. They both got through their last qualifying round. They will both be involved in the Europa League and Europa Conference, respectively, next week. Coleraine unfortunately went out. He had a tough draw against Aberdeen, and it was 2 narrow defeats over the 2 legs for them. But let's go and get through to our tactical meeting. Our first European action of the season. It's lovely not having the pressure of needing to qualify, because if we lose both games, we end up in Europa Conference. But it would be great if we could go one better, and maybe even go 2 better, because Champions League money would set us for life. Let's go and have a look at the lineup I've picked. It is a little bit strange compared to what was expected. I've gone for Miles Stout over the new boy at left back. 1, because he's closer to Matt Sharpness, and 2, because he's been at the club a bit longer. Just trying to keep familiarity. You know my process when it comes to integrating new players. Merivale Austin is in as the number 10 with Scully up front. Damien Dunn drops out. Even though the assistant keeps telling me to drop Scully, I'm not going to do it. We have got some new staff in, but the assistant manager was not one of them. Both Ashley Williams and Dave Edwards, even Welshman on the staff in front, have both rejected us. But this is the 11 we've gone for. It is Neil Kane in goal. Stow and Reed the fullbacks, with Smith and McKenzie at centre-half. Yes, Smith did extend his loan, as we mentioned in the last episode. Gash and Jude the midfield 2. Cowan and Parry the wingers. And then Merivale Austin behind Scully up front. And I think we all agree that's where our threats come in today. We'll probably drop to balance when we get in the game. Let's go and see how we get on in just our second ever Champions League qualifier. Well, here it is, and it is a half-full squad for Basel, but this time it's a little bit different to what we normally expect. They've got some really good real players in their team. Wala the skipper is one of them. They did have a manager till recently. I think he's left the club, but they did actually have one, so I'm a little bit annoyed they haven't now. And it looks like they're going for a 4-4-2, which is going to be tricky as well. Away to Switzerland, we've dropped to a balanced mentality. Let's see how the first half goes and whether we can get on top. Well, 11 minutes gone. It's a corner kick for Basel. It's a free header over the bar as well. Merivale, Austin and Scully both in the box. They're big men to defend those set pieces, but maybe the marking's not the best. Lech Poznan we did avoid, which I guess was a nice touch. And if we get through to the 4th qualifying round, which I appreciate isn't that likely, we will be playing against potentially Derry City if they get through. And my, have we had a few ding-dong battles with them over the years. They're 1-0 up away at Hajduk Split, so let's not rule that out at the moment. But for now, it's all Basel here. We might have to go to a bit more of an aggressive mentality. I wonder if playing balanced, is it because Basel are that good, which they have got a good team, or is it because we're playing a bit more cautiously? We'll go to positive to half-time, and to be fair, we've learnt nothing from that. So let's get through. 0-0's a good result away from home. The way we play at home, I would trust us to get a result. If we can get back level, I feel more confident. They're bringing on a star striker. We'll see how the start of this second half goes. And then we'll think about changes soon, because Scully's on a booking. We've not really been that effective going forward. And we have got a few other people to consider this time around. So 25 to go. It's been a pretty boring game so far, hasn't it? We've only really had 1 or 2 little highlights. None for us going forward. How Johnny Merivale Austin's complacent, I don't know. But he is going to go through the middle for us now. Scully is going to be taken off. Damien Dunn will come on for him. Kashif Beaton is going to make his debut off the left. And we're going to try him as an inverted winger on attack. See how he gets on in that new role. Gives us an extra dimension in attacking midfield. I am tempted to replace Stow with the big man himself, Kyle Carr. But he's looking nervous, so that's not happening today. I will change the right back though. Reed struggling a bit. Tommy Murphy, he had some big impacts off the bench in qualifying last year, didn't he? And we'll leave the last 2 a few more minutes. But ultimately, while we've not been great at home in qualifying over the years, I think a 0-0 draw here would be a pretty good outcome. Jordan Gash is starting to struggle physically, as is Merivale Austin up front, as is Jude now in midfield. What do we go for? I've got to take Gash off, haven't I? He'll be replaced by Neil Daly, who's solid enough in there. To be fair, Basel haven't had much of a threat either. It's been a couple of set pieces and that's about it. Stow is now really struggling at left back, and the nerves seem to have left Kyle Carr, so he's going to come on for the last 7 minutes. 2 debutants on the left-hand side, 2 returning debutants permanently in defence and midfield. You know what? This has been a pretty good day. Apologies to you guys because you've come back for a new season. After a year in which we played exciting football, we shocked the odds, we dominated Northern Irish football, we even did well in Europe. And that was a bit of a damp squib, but to be honest with you, with the home leg coming up, I'm pretty happy it was. A 0-0 draw away in Switzerland, and I think that leaves us in pretty good shape. Either way, it does add a bit to the coefficient. Let's go and have a look at the schedule for our start to the season, because on paper, it is a pretty tricky one. I think we know we'll be facing Derry City if we do get through, and Linfield are going for some big players now. But let's have a quick look. I can show you a bit more now, because obviously, that game did not fill us with highlights or content. So I'm going to show you the staffing upgrades very quickly as well. Sammy Clingan didn't get replaced in the end yet, but other senior coaches have come in. We've got a head of youth development who might be on his way soon as well. In terms of the coaches, I think we did briefly mention Tommy Elphick. We also mentioned Jared Harvey. We'd also brought in a couple of fitness coaches, one from Belgium, which will expand our coaching range a little bit, He came in from Burnley, where he'd been working with Vincent Kompany in real life. And then further down, we put a lot of focus into getting more performance analysts, more sports scientists, more scouting people in. And big name among them has got to be Dean Smith, the former Villa, Norwich and most recently Leicester manager in real life. He's come in, is a very good scout, very experienced, and he replaces Paul Cook, who decided to leave for a job in England. But we've got an upgrade, and we've got a scout who knows what it's like to be a manager and can hopefully help us spot a player. So I'm really pleased with how it's shaping off the pitch, and I will always say it, and I'll sing it till the cows come home. Make sure you get yourself the best coaching team possible. If your backroom team is the best in class, a lot of the rest of it will fall into place. If we go and have a look at the facilities, everything is moving along nicely. We're up to good training facilities now, and once we get our group stage money this year, we'll ask for yet another upgrade. And if we go through and have a quick look at the transfer centre, you can see in Northern Ireland that there are some bits going on. Firstly, in terms of links at the moment, but also we've seen some big clubs making big deals. So Linfield signed a youngster we were looking at. Doesn't look all that at the moment, but has enormous potential and physically is very good as well. So great to see that 21-year-olds who have been at Leeds, for example, are now turning up at Linfield as squad players. That is a very good sign for the future. We have seen Larne bring a couple in as well. Kemar Sawyer's a very decent defender. Probably a squad player, but that's what they've signed him as, so you've got to be pleased with that deal. And then also Antonio Ambrosio, who is their new striker, and bar maybe having a slight wobble on the finishing, is a bit of a gem. The problem they've got, though, is he picked up an injury immediately and is basically out for the season. So that is a real bit of tough luck for them, and I just hope they can find a replacement because, look, Larne had made a massive stride forward with that signing, and it's come back to bite them on the bum already. Also good to see players filtering down the league, so the likes of Sean McAllister, big heartbreaker for us in the past, released by Linfield. Yes, he's a little over the hill now, but straight to Coleraine to improve the nation, something that's got to continue to happen. But that's where we are at the moment. We're still in with a chance in the Champions League after that 0-0 draw in Switzerland. The league is up to 3-star reputation. The club is up to 2.5-star reputation. The finances, despite all the improvements, are pretty good before all the money starts to roll in for Europe. And we are going to be back in a week's time for the second leg against Basel. They're going to be a bit trickier, but for now, we have got a chance at the Champions League. And if we can do it, well, it would be another big moment and a big stride forward in this save. The chance to get 12 or 13 million in the bank is not something to be sniffed at. Do you think we can do it? Let me know in the comments below. It's poised nicely at 0-0, and you didn't see many highlights to really judge whether we're favourites or not now. If you did enjoy this episode though, and please do put a thumbs up on it. Let me know what you think of the big deals, and are we going to regret spending that big money on those 2 players we've had on loan? If you want to stay up to date with the rest of the season, find out if we can make the Champions League and what happens in the rest of the window, then please do subscribe and turn that notification bell on. We'll be back with the head coach tomorrow. It's been a bit of a rockier ride in that one, but then in 2 days' time, we will be back to find out the conclusion to this tie against Basel. There's also links in the eye above to the Twitch channel, the football podcast, and of course the blog posts as well. And I'll see you back here next time for the conclusion of a massive Champions League qualifier.